September 1939, the Bay Roberts fishing wharf, Newfoundland. The salt spray from the choppy North Atlantic slapped against the weathered planks. The rhythmic clanging of a buoy offshore broke the lonely silence. Newfoundland, still a British dominion, stood apart from the war. The war had just begun in Europe, a distant rumble of artillery and marching boots. But here the tension was quiet, a cold fact carried on the sea breeze. Oberstleutnant Richter was not a fisherman. He was a German intelligence officer under deep cover as a Swiss naturalist. He stood at the water's edge, binoculars scanning not for seabirds but for the smoke of a Royal Navy cruiser or the shadow of a U-boat. Richter was part of a scattered network of Abwehr agents in North America, tasked with mapping Allied supply lines and spotting weak points. Their job was sabotage, but before destruction came observation. One observation point mattered above all, a place wrapped in secrecy, the Newfoundland airport. Built on a swampy plateau near a forgotten railway siding called Gander, it was an improbable marvel of concrete. 4 vast runways carved from boreal forest, designed for a future not yet here. Now that future had arrived with war. The airfield, under Royal Canadian Air Force control, was rapidly becoming one of the most vital and secret installations in the Western Hemisphere. Richter's contact, a meteorologist near St. John's, intercepted encrypted Allied radio traffic. The messages were cryptic. Hudson's cleared for departure. Liberators incoming, Beaverbrook Center prep complete. The volume of traffic chilled German analysts. It hinted at scale. Richter knew Gander existed, but not its purpose. He sent 3 local assets, German sympathizers, toward the area. 2 vanished in the wilderness, perhaps caught by Canadian patrols. Then in November 1940, a report arrived, smuggled from Newfoundland to Berlin. The source, a railway worker called the Coot, described 7 twin-engine bombers lined up at Gander, fully assembled and manned. They took off east, straight into the winter Atlantic. The implication struck Richter. They weren't shipping planes, they were flying them. Bypassing U-boat lanes and cargo delays, the Allies were delivering bombers directly to Britain. This was the birth of the RAF Ferry Command, and Gander was its cradle. Richter's report warned Berlin, the Americans have built an air bridge. Newfoundland is the nexus. In Berlin, Colonel Ulrich Schmidt studied the reports. At first, 7 Hudsons seemed a fluke, a stunt. But new intelligence revealed a doctrine, a transatlantic ferry system based in Montreal and Gander, recruiting civilian pilots to deliver aircraft straight into the war. Schmidt leaned over a detailed map of the Atlantic. Red lines marked shipping routes and U-boat patrols. But a new line, the Great Circle route, cut the ocean short. Gander made the impossible possible. Twin-engine bombers could now reach Europe by air, not sea. The intelligence painted a startling picture. America's industrial might was awakening. Factories in California and Texas rolled out B-24 Liberators, Hudsons, and Mustangs. These aircraft crossed the continent to Canada, then launched from Gander into the Atlantic storms. Reports from agents like Richter described chaos at Gander, but a productive chaos. The once empty swamp was now called the crossroads of the world. Thousands of mechanics, meteorologists, and pilots kept the flow constant, 24 hours a day through fog and snow. Squadron leader David McLean, a rugged Canadian pilot, witnessed the frenzy. The air reeked of fuel. Runways never stayed empty. Hudsons gleamed with new paint, followed by massive 4-engine Liberators. Construction crews worked side by side, Americans and locals. The weather crews became lifelines. Using Gander's unique position, they mapped every pressure front, every gust. They made the deadly sky predictable, giving pilots narrow windows of safety over the brutal North Atlantic. Windows measured in minutes, not hours. Meanwhile, Richter's new informant, a cook nicknamed the Spoon, risked his life to count departures. His coded message reached Berlin. The movement is not a trickle, it is a flood. Dozens of aircraft took off daily. Gander's runways never rested. Colonel Schmidt read the message and understood. Gander wasn't a base, it was a machine. If Germany couldn't sink the planes at sea or bomb factories in America, their only chance was to strike here. But Gander was deep, guarded, and unreachable through the wilderness. Schmidt clenched the coded paper. The Allies had found the answer to the U-boat war. Lift their supplies above the ocean. American production was unstoppable, and Gander was its funnel. The Atlantic no longer belonged to submarines, but to bombers and ferry crews. In Berlin's war rooms, Schmidt faced skepticism. Admirals demanded proof. He produced charts. One line showed U-boat sinkings, the other showed aircraft deliveries. The Ferry Command line rose exponentially. The enemy, Schmidt said, was no longer Britain, it was industry. He warned that the Allies' replacement rate was infinite. Every few days, Gander replaced what Germany destroyed. The air bridge nullified the U-boat's purpose. "Gentlemen," Schmidt said coldly, "our tourniquet is useless. The artery has bypassed the ocean." Sabotage was discussed. Parachuting agents near Gander, a seaborne raid on its fuel depots. But each idea died quickly. The wilderness was impenetrable, the perimeter tight, and any infiltration suicidal. Gander had become an untouchable fortress of logistics. Then came the spring of 1942. New intelligence confirmed something far worse. Gander was now ferrying 4-engine giants, B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators. These weren't patrol planes. They were city destroyers capable of reaching Germany's industrial heart. Klaus Richter, still operating from Newfoundland's shadows, compiled the data. He saw what it meant. Germany wasn't just losing the Battle of the Atlantic, it was losing the future. Bombers flown from Gander would soon rain fire over every major German city. The facts were undeniable. North American industry, funneled through this air bridge, rendered German victory impossible. Colonel Schmidt's final report stated it plainly. The Allies had created an industrial-scale airlift that erased the U-boat's strategic value. By 1943, RCF Station Gander had grown into a roaring metal city. It was the largest airfield on Earth, its 4 runways rarely silent. What began with 7 Hudson bombers had become a torrent of aircraft, fuel, and men, earning its title, Crossroads of the World. Canadian soldiers, American engineers, and Newfoundland civilians worked shoulder to shoulder. The Ferry Command, now absorbed into RAF Transport Command, operated like clockwork. Their mission: keep the sky bridge open no matter the cost or the weather. They ferried everything: B-24 Liberators, B-17s, and nimble P-51 Mustangs fitted with temporary tanks for the crossing. Even cargo planes carried crucial parts and personnel. Gander wasn't just a base, it was a living artery feeding Britain's fight for survival. Pilot Officer Jean-Pierre Dubois, a young French-Canadian, stood in Gander's briefing room beside a newly built B-25 Mitchell. On the wall, weather charts mapped deadly fronts. The Blue Yonder route was announced, a high-altitude path punching through icy clouds. 32 aircraft would depart that day in 3 waves. Dubois felt the weight of it. Each flight was a small air force, a symbol of endless production. Every departure meant another blow against Germany, another reminder that the Allies could not be starved of air. By year's end, over 10,000 aircraft had crossed the Atlantic through Gander. Schmidt, now sidelined, read the totals with grim vindication. What he'd predicted had come true. The air bridge had crushed the U-boat war and ensured the Reich's slow, inevitable defeat. From Berlin's gray offices, Schmidt watched reports arrive less frequently as the Abwehr network in North America collapsed. But each surviving message told the same story. The sky over Gander was never empty, and the stream of bombers only grew thicker with time. The base had evolved into a full transatlantic city, complete with hangars, barracks, control towers, and weather stations. Every runway groaned beneath the weight of departing bombers. Even the local villagers spoke of the endless roar that shook their homes nightly. For Richter, still deep undercover in Newfoundland, the sound of engines became a tormenting drumbeat. Each takeoff symbolized another failure of German strategy. He transmitted what he could, but the reports felt like funeral notices for his nation's war ambitions. The Germans had underestimated what they called the arsenal of democracy. They believed the Atlantic would remain their shield, but the Allies had simply flown over it. Industrial power had found wings, and Gander was the hinge connecting continents in defiance of odds. By mid-1943, the U-boats were retreating, their hunting grounds shrinking as Allied aircraft swept the seas. The air bridge from Gander ensured that new patrol planes, bombers, and escort fighters reached Europe faster than Germany could respond or rebuild. Colonel Schmidt, now relegated to an administrative post, reviewed the latest Ferry Command data. The total was staggering: 10,000 aircraft in 2 years. Each one, he thought, is a nail in the coffin. He knew history would remember Gander as Germany's undoing. In Gander, Pilot Officer Dubois strapped into his B-25 Mitchell, the engines thundered, shaking the frosted glass of the control tower. Ground crews waved him forward. Outside, snow swirled like smoke from a dying world. He pushed the throttles and began his run. The bomber raced across the icy runway, lifted into the gray dawn and vanished eastward toward war. Behind him, another aircraft rolled forward, then another. The cycle never stopped. Each takeoff was a heartbeat of Allied industry pulsing across the Atlantic. From the frozen forest below, the locals gazed upward, watching the silhouettes vanish into the clouds. They might not have understood the war's vast machinery, but they sensed the significance. This remote Newfoundland outpost had become history's pivot point. As Dubois' bomber disappeared into the horizon, its engines echoed the truth Colonel Schmidt had foreseen. The war was lost not in battlefields but in factories and on runways like Gander's. The roar of its engines was the sound of inevitable Allied victory. By late 1943, Gander's name was whispered with awe among Allied crews. It was more than an airbase, and it was a symbol of endurance, a frozen gateway that defied geography itself. Pilots crossing the Atlantic would say, "Once you've seen Gander in your mirror, you're halfway home." Within the mess halls, laughter mixed with exhaustion. Pilots from Britain, Canada, America, and beyond shared hurried meals before another crossing. Charts and weather reports littered the tables. Outside, snow fell over endless rows of aircraft waiting to depart. Mechanics worked through the night under floodlights, wrenches clanging in rhythm to distant propellers. The smell of fuel, oil, and coffee blended into the scent of war industry. Every part, every bolt was a contribution to something far larger than any one man. For the Newfoundlanders, Gander became both a mystery and a miracle. Their quiet island now buzzed with the energy of global war. Young locals found work as meteorologists, cooks, and loaders, unknowingly shaping the future from the very edge of North America. In Berlin, the High Command could no longer ignore Schmidt's warnings. Reports confirmed that the Ferry Command had turned Britain's air fleet from desperate to dominant. German factories burned nightly under waves of bombers delivered through this secret bridge. Even Hitler's strategists, once confident in their U-boats, saw the writing on the wall. The Atlantic, once their weapon, had been conquered from above. Schmidt's final memorandum summed it up coldly. The air war will not be decided by courage, but by production. Back in Newfoundland, the rhythm of departure continued. Day and night, the engines howled across the tundra. Each takeoff carried another piece of the Allied juggernaut eastward. Not just planes, but conviction, technology, and the will to end the darkness. By 1944, the Ferry Command's success had rewritten logistics forever. Transatlantic flight, once a fantasy, was now routine. Gander stood as proof that with enough will, men could outfly the sea and outbuild any empire. The age of air power had truly arrived. As peace inched closer, Gander's runways bore the scars of 1,000 departures. Cracked pavement, oil stains, and tire marks told the story of history's busiest crossroad. What began as a secret wartime necessity would soon become the heart of civilian aviation. The war's end did not silence Gander. Its legacy roared on. In every commercial airliner that traced the same sky, in every pilot who crossed the Atlantic safely. The secret Canadian outpost had changed the world, proving that even in war, innovation could conquer oceans. In the post-war years, Gander transformed from fortress to gateway. Commercial airlines replaced bombers and passengers replaced crews. Yet beneath every takeoff lingered the echo of 1940, when courage, cold, and machinery united to build a bridge over the Atlantic. Historians would later call it the miracle of Gander. Engineers called it inevitability. But for those who had lived through it, the pilots, the mechanics, the cooks, and even the spies, it was simply survival, the triumph of determination against isolation and ice. Klaus Richter vanished into history, his true identity never uncovered by the Allies. Some say he perished in the Newfoundland wilderness, others that he escaped back to Europe. His reports, however, endured. Archived evidence of Germany's dawning realization of defeat. Colonel Schmidt's name, too, faded from the official records. His final assessments, though buried by politics, proved prophetic. In the end, he understood that the war's outcome was written not by generals or admirals, but by factories and airfields like Gander. Gander's 4 great runways outlasted the war. They became stepping stones of the modern world. For decades, nearly every transatlantic flight would pass through the same windswept tarmac, the very same ground where ferry crews once gambled their lives against the storm. Today, few travelers know that beneath the snow and tarmac of Gander International lies the ghost of the RAF Ferry Command, the cradle of the air bridge that turned the tide. Each modern jetliner departing Newfoundland still traces that invisible wartime path. The town that grew around the base still bears its legacy proudly. Streets named after aircraft and airmen stand as quiet memorials. The locals tell stories of engines that shook their childhood homes, and of a time when their remote island changed the world's fate. The story of Gander is not only about war, but about connection. Proof that distance and danger can be conquered when innovation meets necessity. It is a testament to the power of logistics and to the people who dared to make the impossible ordinary. As the final echo of wartime engines fades into memory, Gander remains a symbol of what humanity can build under pressure. It is where fear met ingenuity, and where a frozen corner of Newfoundland became the heart of a global victory, born from persistence and flight. Thank you for watching. If the incredible untold story of Gander and the impossible air bridge amazed you, please like, share, and subscribe. This Canadian secret changed the course of World War II. Which aircraft do you think was most vital to Ferry Command's success?